I've had this in my spirit for a few days now. It's kind of been building to this for a little while, and it's time to talk about it. I want to start by reading Timothy 3:16, verse that most of us know. Oops, cast it. Again, bear with me as I try to find. I'm sorry, I meant 1 Timothy 3:16. I think I did not write down which Timothy. I believe it's 1 Timothy. Oops. 3:16. Nope. 2 Timothy. My apologies. 2 Timothy 3:16. All Scripture is inspired by God and is useful to teach us what is true and to make us realize what is wrong in our lives. It corrects us when we are wrong and teaches us to do what is right. The part I want to focus on is all Scripture is inspired by God. It means everything in this book is from God. Everything in this book is written by God. Remember that. That's key to what we're about to talk about. Let's go to Hebrews 6:18. Pass it again. Well, I need to start putting bookmarks in here. Hebrews 6:18. So God has given his promise and his oath. These two things are unchangeable, because it is impossible for God to lie. Therefore, we who have not important to it. It is impossible for God to lie. Everything in this book is said by him. That means everything in this book is true. That's a fundamental belief of Christians. Let's go to Numbers 23:19. Kind of along the same thought, but it's of utmost importance for us as believers. God is not a man, so he does not lie. He is not human, so he does not change his mind. Has he ever spoken and failed to act? Has he ever promised and not carried it through? God doesn't lie. God can't lie, actually. And he never changes his mind. Meaning, everything he said in here is true, and he hasn't changed his mind on any of it. That's why when we read stories like Jesus rose from the dead, we don't say, well, maybe he just fell asleep. No, we accept it for the miracle that it is. He rose from the dead. When we read a story of Jonah, and you may go, well, maybe he didn't get swallowed by a fish. Maybe he was just on a fish's back. Maybe the fish just helped him out a little. No, this fish ate him. When we read these crazy, outlandish stories, I mean, in Judges, it talks about Samson, and he carried a city gate hundreds of miles. But if you do calculation of how heavy the gate was, thousands of pounds, absolutely ridiculous things that it'd be so easy to read and go, that has to be metaphorical. That can't be true. The Bible must be exaggerating. But it's not, because it's true. Because God can't lie. In all these stories that we read, we don't question it. When it says Jesus fed 5,000 people, he fed 5,000 people. When it says it was a miracle, we don't say, oh, maybe they found other food while they were feeding him. No. The food multiplied. They fed him. They fed from the small amount of food that the child brought. We don't question these things because God can't lie, and this book is God breathed. But then we get to verses that pertain to us today. We get to verses that aren't just stories. Verses like Mark 16:18. Starting at 17. These miraculous signs will accompany those who believe. They will cast out demons in my name. They will speak with new languages. They will be able to handle snakes with safety, and if they drink anything poisonous, it won't hurt them. They will be able to lay their hands on the sick, and they will be healed. Now, that verse is for the apostles, right? Or early church. Let's see. Anyone who believes and is baptized will be saved. But anyone who refuses to believe will be condemned. These miraculous signs will accompany those who believe. Everyone. Those who believe. That's me. That's you. Again, we read the Bible and all these crazy stories that are harder to believe and they're more outlandish and more crazy than you'll lay their hands on the sick and they'll be healed. I mean, personally, like, the story of Samson alone is hard to believe. The things David did in his life. He killed a bear and a lion with his bare hands. Or with a sling. Because it took his sheep. We believe those stories. But then as soon as there's a verse that pertains to us, we say, well, we don't see that in our life. We don't see that. So that must be, God must have misspoke. Or he didn't mean it like that. He didn't mean it that strongly. That's not what it means. I'm dropping my notes here. He didn't mean it that strongly because that's not what we see in the world. I also don't see people fighting lions with their bare hands. I don't see people walking on water. Yet when we read that story of Jesus walking on water, we don't say, oh, there were probably just rocks under the water, making it look like he walked on water. No, Jesus walked on water. We don't explain it away. We don't question it. But then you get these verses that challenge us. Challenge us to question why we're not seeing in our lives. Then we question the Bible. Turn to John 14:12. I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I am going to be with the Father. You can ask anything in my name, and I will do it. So that the Son of Man... Lost my space. My font on this Bible is very small. So that the Son can bring glory to the Father. Yes, ask me anything in my name, and I will do it. Now reread verse 13. You will ask anything in my name, and I will do it, so that the Son can bring glory to the Father. Yes, ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. that verse really easy to go, well, either that's for ministry, or for, even if you believe in healing, it's for people being healed, or things that are in the Bible. No, he says anything. He doesn't limit it. He actually says it twice. You can ask for anything in my name, and then in verse 14, yes, ask me for anything in my name, and I'll do it. It's like he knows people are going to question it and say, really? Anything? Yes, anything. You ask me in my name, and I'll do it. And yet when we read that, we don't just go, okay, cool. We can ask him for anything. There's other verses that say the same thing. It says if you ask two or more, God will answer. I heard all my life that God always answers, but sometimes it's no, sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's maybe. Or sometimes it's wait. That's no. That's not what that means. No one ever came up to Jesus and said, Jesus, can you heal me? He says, like, wait, it's not your time yet. That's not the Bible. That's one of the ways we explain away these verses. So rather than taking it and explaining these verses away, rather than taking it and going, that can't be what that verse means, because I don't see it in my life. God is not a man that he should lie, nor the Son of Man that he should change his mind. But guess who is a man? Me. You. That verse basically says, that God is not a man that he should lie. So if there's something in here, what that verse should say to us is, if there's something in this book that doesn't seem like our life doesn't line up with, it doesn't make sense because it's not what we see, we need to go, okay, God, you're not a man, but I am a man. So it must be on me why I'm not seeing that. Because you are not a man that you should lie. Meaning, everything in the Bible is true. So you say, Lord, what am I missing then? Because it's on me. There's a verse that a lot of us know. I didn't write this one down. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. Now, people perishing, that can be from not being healed. So why would they not be healed? Why would his people perish if we can lay the hands on the sick and they will recover? Because we don't have knowledge. We don't know that it's ours, that we can do that. Oftentimes, usually, when you read those verses and go, but that's not what I see in my life, it's because of a lack of knowledge. It's because you don't know, understand. You can't have what you don't know. You can't have what you don't speak. Whatever you ask for in my name, you have to let it come out of your mouth. You have to actually ask for it. You can't just be going, well, God hasn't blessed me yet with a Rolls Royce. He hasn't given me a mansion yet. Have you asked him for it? Have you asked him what your part of that is? Because he might want you to do something. I challenge everyone who's watching. This book don't read it. Try to remove your filters. Try to remove any doctrinal lens you're reading it through. Because I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in a house that loved doctrine, loved theology. There was a lot of explaining away these verses. Sorry if you can hear that train. I know there's a train over here. But quiet down, train. I'm trying to talk here. I don't remember where it is in the Bible. I mentioned before I need to get better about that. But it says that, talking about the end times, which we're in now, it says in those days there will be doctrines of devils, or doctrines of demons. I used to think that those were like things that commonly Christians think of as heresy, like Jehovah's Witness or Mormon, or these sects of Christianity that the general Christianity don't think of as legitimate. But what good would it? Let's do a mind exercise for a minute. Let's think. Imagine for once that we're the devil. If you wanted to create a doctrine, what would that doctrine be? Would it be one that most Christians dismissed as heresy? Or would it be one that worked as hard as you can to make fit right in comfortably? And also one that stripped it of all power. That stripped it of all power over the enemy. Because if you can do that, the church has no power over you. You win. So I believe doctrines of devils refers to any doctrine that strips Christianity of power. Strips Christianity of these verses that say, you will lay your hands on the sick and they will recover. I'm not going to have all the information on this 100% perfect, but what group is it? Not the World Health Organization, but the World Economic Forum. They about a year ago or so, they asked a bunch of church leaders to come, like major, like I'm not gonna even say which ones I think it was because I don't remember exactly, but like, again, I'm not gonna say it was this one, but like, let's say like Baptist leader, like great, like leaders of the Baptist church. Don't know if Baptist was one of them, but here's an example. In the World Economic Forum, which we all know is demonically charged. Like they one thing they're saying is like by 2035 or something, like we want everyone to own nothing and be happy. That's not of the Bible. But they told all these church leaders, we want you to forbid laying your hands on the sick. We want you to forbid praying in tongues. And we want you to forbid one other thing, I don't remember what it was, but another thing like that involved power. So if the demonically charged, demonically fueled group in the world wants us to stop that, why? Why, if it wasn't real? Are they telling Jehovah's Witness, hey, stop knocking on people's doors? No, because they don't care. There's no power there. Who cares? Why would they care if a false religion continues? Why would they care if something that has no power over them continues? They don't. But laying your hands on the sick, praying in tongues, these things of power, those they want to stop. And that's just more proof to me that those things are legitimate. Those things are actually real and hold power. Because this book says so. Don't read the Bible with a filter. I did for most of my life. And it led to difficulty. Led to panic attacks, anxiety, defeat. Crying out to God, saying, God, in your word, you call me more than a conqueror, invictorious. But I'm sitting here living in sin, unable to break free. I'm sitting here with panic attacks, suicidal thoughts, and I'm not free. I'm defeated. But it wasn't until God showed me to stop reading the book, to stop reading the Bible with a filter, to just take it at its word, that I was free. So I challenge you, anytime you read a verse that doesn't quite line up with what you're seeing in your life, don't try to explain it away. Like, if you've been a Christian for a while, you'll be tempted to go, that verse can't mean that. It might be this subtle little thing in the back of your mind because you've read it so many times that you just kind of brush it off. But no, say, Lord, why don't I see that in my life? And he'll answer you. But just read the Bible for what it says, because God is not a man that he should lie, or the son of man that he should change his mind. So everything in this book is true, and everything promised in it is current, because he doesn't change his mind. He didn't. One of the verses I read is in Numbers. It's one of the earliest books in the Bible, or one of the first books in the Bible. It's not the earliest, but because it's a couple thousand years in, I think, somewhere about there. But he didn't write that verse that says, I don't change my mind. And then, or he doesn't lie. And then now go, you know what? I want to change that up. He didn't write Genesis where he promised his people all these things, and Exodus where he promises people all these things, Deuteronomy 28 where he promised his people abundance, and then now go, you know what? I think I'm gonna back off that. That blessing was a pretty strong. No. He doesn't change his mind. So stop reading it as if he has.